someone who was a stutterer has always had problems when they say, well, children are naturally nice people. There is nothing as vicious as a child, really, when you aren't a normal person. A adult wouldn't put down another person, a child will. And that's not being taught by the parent. That's my own...
Well, look, there is no attempt to trying to make the child appear angelic. We're only talking about the fact that there's certain beliefs that are transmitted. A child is immature. A child will be able to act out their immaturity in a series of ways. And among those ways, there are going to be times when they are going to be unjust, etc. Oh, absolutely. We're just concerned with how they adopt certain fundamental beliefs. It's not presenting them as angelic in any way.
It reminds me, my father was not real close to me. One of the few times he would level with me was he'd be telling me his happiest days is being a bachelor. And I've never married, so I might have had some insight.
If you'd like, I could take that scene for you and show you. Like, how often did he relate to you that way?
Well, just a certain time when I was really young, and
right.
We were batching, and my mother was sick. So he had the problems. He had 2 children, had hospital bills to pay, and probably burdening him. And so he'd say, well, my happiest days when I was a bachelor didn't have all these problems.
See, what I wanted to know is, when did he share confidences like that with you?
It would be when we'd had supper together and we'd washing the dishes.
Right, so then you see, you're open, you're working together, very similar, say. Yeah. You're open, you're working together, it looks like an ideal scene. There's no reason to be suspicious of any message coming down. That's right.
Because he's always working, or he's a workaholic. So
that's
very good times together.
Yeah. So then he's taking this time to share something with you. How does he look at that moment? Knowing?
Yeah.
Sincere?
Sure.
Yeah. All of the key virtues?
He's my sole authority.
That's right. He's the sole authority. Look here. He looks great. Right? He looks great. We're here. He's sharing something with us. You entered into a relationship with him. He's sharing something with you. That's most important. And in that sharing, you're discovering something that he thinks is most true.
That's right.
And if he thinks it's most true and he's sharing that with you, that's a transmission of a dharma. And it's going to play a major role in your life.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have a younger sister.
And is she a single?
No, she wasn't there at the time. She got married.
No.
She had no trouble getting married.
You see, what would have been interesting, which no child can do, would have been at that time to have said to Dad, hey Dad, you say this to Sister too, or just to me? Are there any good things in being married, Dad?
Like his own son standing there.
Right? So he's saying, my happiest days are back. What is he saying about you?
He's saying that I'm not much appreciated. I'm just a burden, is what he's saying.
Just a burden.
Yeah.
So that's an image he's communicating to you.
Yeah.
That's the very same kind of view, you see. These attitudes are passed on that are going to play a role.
I had inferiority complex most of my life.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, would you agree, what's interesting, we haven't gotten to it, but let's bring it in now. These attitudes and beliefs create a role. That gives him a role, that gives you a role. Yeah. 2 roles. And yours was to accept that as true, and if that's true, you have to be inferior.
Sure.
Why?
Because I'm a burden on him.
Because you're a burden on him. That's right.
Who I am.
That's right.
I had
no integrity to the universe. No integrity to the universe. These are how beliefs are passed on. Fundamental beliefs.
My brain wasn't developed enough so I could question it. It just
Now, there's something else that occurs which is very important. Now, there's a word I'm going to use. Here it is. Beauty. When all of those qualities come together, they look their best.
Yeah.
They look their best.
Yeah.
They look noble, honorable. It's impossible to conceive of the fact that at that time, for their own reasons, they're saying something that is not true. That's impossible for us to
It was the
believe.
most beautiful time. Most of the time he ignored me because he was busy doing other things. So there's a few times he
This is very important.
was close to him, yeah.
That's right. This is very important. And he thought enough of you to share a secret. And so you're going to consider. See, he made the appearance believable
Yeah.
because he looked believable. She became believable. Right? They become believable. And it can never take place if the scene wasn't prepared. You have to be open. There has to be sincerity. There has to be the sense of care and love. And that brings on the great role of the knower. This is a very important thing. In our society, there are very few times when we can ever play the knower role. Very few times. When we can really have an audience that's open and receptive to us, who will listen, who will be attentive, who will even believe it. But in the family, that's where you can do it.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is an ideal time for the person to play the great knower role. That's the time. And therefore, it's a great moment, very significant. Now, what's most interesting about this is that the individual who's playing out this doesn't even know what they're doing.
No. He just unloading his burdens.
He's unloading at the time.
Yeah.
They're unloading at the time. If you went back and said, hey, Dad, you know, some of the most significant things in my life, there are about 10 of them. And, you know, one of them happens to be the time when we were doing dishes together. Do you think he'd remember doing dishes with you and giving that message?
Probably not. No.
Right? It looms large on our horizon. That's a great event because something was passed on to us.
Sure.
But for them, they don't even remember it.
No.
But we recall it. It frames, see? Now we pick on let's call it a mask. We become what appears to be consistent with that message, with that transmission of the doctrine.
Right.
And therefore now we carry it. Now, you see, what maintains it? This is how it's transmitted, but how is it maintained? How is the teaching maintained? Because it's maintained for the whole life. It's maintained in a very interesting way. If anybody who was working and exploring their pathologos, these basic beliefs, all you need to do is discover just two interesting things. You take the themes, and there are only a finite number of them, like here, the one you just gave us, which is the kind of gave you the belief in inferiority role or inferiority view of yourself. Then you want to see how the daydreams a person has, their fantasies, daydreams, and night dreams interrelate. They always interrelate. Dreams, though we may not have enough time tonight to go through it, the nighttime dreams will always contradict the daydreams. The daydreams are always fragments of these pathologos scenes and the struggle against it. They always work. Night dreams contradict it and offer a solution out if we know how to read them and engage them. So we create them, we conclude, we live them. How do we live them and what maintains them? Daydreams. That's what maintains them. It's the daydreams that is continually playing the record over.